Hello everybody, I'm Fracka Future and welcome to the Vanguard of Light. So, how to start winning immediately by playing for the spiritual scoreboard. Ooh, we got a good one, This is an awesome one. Got a little bit of a windy day, a little bit cold, a little brisk out. Great day. So hopefully this is blocking, this is actually keeping me warm, but there's actually a mic underneath with a little soundy thing that hopefully this is gonna work, but awesome. So, let's talk about this, how to start winning immediately by playing for the spiritual scoreboard. So this is going to be another magical metaphor, and we're going to be talking about the spiritual scoreboard. So you got to think of the spiritual scoreboard as kind of like what you're going to take with you when you transition, when you pass on. Like what's going to really matter, what's going to really count, okay? And if you play for that scoreboard, one, you can start winning immediately, and two, you can start living the life of your dreams. You start moving towards that, right? Start having a lot more joy in your life. So how that works is, you got to think generally, like how we go through the day, right? And we do something positive, but then we mess up a bit. Positive, mess up, positive, mess up, right? And you kind of get this scoreboard of like, oh man, I did. And sometimes you don't even look at the positives. You're like, oh, I messed up 10 times a day or 20 times. Or actually what really happens is you start messing up like once and then you retreat. You kind of pull in, or you mess up twice or 2 or 3 times, and it's kind of like, I messed up 3 times. And it's almost like the score is coming of like, okay, I won this many times, but I failed all this many times, and that just keeps going up. And then each day is like more and more fail. I won a couple, more. But that's not what's happening on the spiritual scoreboard. So what's happening on the spiritual scoreboard, say you have like, empathy or caring or love for another person, and it counts as a win, right? And kind of you mess up, you don't quite do it right, you mumble your words or whatever, like somehow you fail, right? So that's like kind of your daily scoreboard of like, okay, I did good, and maybe I did a bunch of bad, right? I'm not talking like horrible, but like you just mess up, right? So, and the mess ups stay on the scoreboard for the day, right? So you can kind of see them and be like, oh, okay, like maybe you had love in your heart and you approached somebody and you were trying to be nice, but it didn't go over well, and it kind of irritated them and it pissed them off, and it kind of stays there. I mean, there's a couple reasons. One, it could have been like you were sincerely wanting to share and they just weren't in the place and they just couldn't feel it. Or it could have been you sincerely wanted to share, but you didn't notice where they were at. Like, like an example, I'm not saying you actually did this, but an example of like say you wanted to give somebody a hug, but they had broken ribs and you didn't know they had broken ribs, and you're like, I gave you a big squeeze, I looked at my love, and then obviously they'd react in pain and be like, what are you doing to my rib? And if you took it as like, well, you're just rejecting me and you can't handle my love and blah, 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 that's like, you'd be like, you're missing the point of like, oh no, oh wow. Broken ribs, yeah, I could see why you don't want to get a big old squeezy hug. Has nothing to do with you can't receive love. It's got, you got an injury, right? And even if they did have like where they couldn't receive love, pushing love on them isn't positive. It's like finding like, well, what way can they receive love? How can I adjust me and my stuff, not to change you, but if you wanted to share love with somebody and they need it in a certain way that helps for them to share it, it's like find out what that is, right? It's not changing yourself of like, well, they need to be in this way and you have to do it this, because that's generally not love. That's more control, and that's not actual genuine love. Metaphor to demonstrate that, and that's kind of more of like an energetic change of like, well, I need you to do it this way for me to feel love. I almost gave you the hidden part of safe. It's normally safe. It's some kind of thing of what they need in an energetic chain manner, as opposed to love is more like a lighthouse where you can beam out love to people, and it really doesn't matter if they're able to accept it, and there's no like kind of qualification of like, well, if I beam love at you, you have to smile and be happy. You have to be, it's like, no, it doesn't. It's like a lighthouse. He just beams it out. And if the ship can see it and use that as direction and be like, okay, that helps me. Or, they just turn away and don't look at it, doesn't stop the love beaming out. But anyway, back to the scoreboard. So you got your daily scoreboard, right? And you got like, your mess ups, and you got like your stuff that you did good. But what happens in a day, and this is kind of like a more of my thing, of like the bad stuff that you did or didn't do well, that drops to 0, right? But the good stuff post to your spiritual scoreboard. So each day, your spiritual scoreboard kind of has your total of all the good stuff you did, but then only the total of the bad stuff that you did for that day. And then each day, like say you did like 3 great things, but you messed up 10 times, right? On your spiritual scoreboard, you'd get 3 in the win column and a big goose egg in the lose column. Like each day that flushes. I mean, it stays for a day, maybe a day or two, so you can kind of adjust and be like, ooh, I can do that better, right? So it stays around for a little bit, but it flushes. Like each day, each couple days, it flushes. It's supposed to flush. You're not supposed to keep it around for years and years and be like, okay, here's this mountain to mess up, and here's my little bit of good. It's like, no. On the spiritual scoreboard, it's a mountain of good. And it's really about being here and like how much you can really learn about love and caring and empathy and like, even achievement too, of like, and how like what you can explore in your spirit, and those all counts as win. But you're going to go through mistakes and messing up, and it's not a one-to-one. Each day you flush them. Just flush the mistakes. It'll be like, days from tomorrow, they're flushed. I started at 0, right? And you start at 0, so then it's okay to kind of like, okay, I'm going to mess up 10 times to post 3 wins. Because my 3 wins of like, love are going to post to the scoreboard. And that's what's going to start counting. That's the tally that's going to count up. Versus generally how it works is like, I don't really want to mess up, so maybe I'll get 1 good win and maybe 1 mistake, right? And then it's kind of like, oh look, 1-to-1, it's an even, right? But then on your spiritual scoreboard, you're posting 1 win. Versus if you would mess up 10 times and post 3 wins, that's 3 times the amount. And it kind of unlocks you to where it's like you can really start going out there, because you're pushing for the spiritual scoreboard. You're pushing for the wins of like, okay, I'm gonna get 3 wins. I'm gonna have to go through 20 fails, right? But 3 wins will get posted up, and that counts. And the next day those 20 fails go away and I get to start again. And you're like, okay, let me get after it. And you might go again 20 fails, but you get 5 wins, right? Can you see? Now you have got 8 on your scoreboard, versus if you just played really slow and pretty small and you just did 1 and 1, so you'd have 2 on the scoreboard. Now you got 8. But then you push again and you're like, I'm gonna fail 20 times, right? You fail 20 times, but you might get 10 wins in or 12 wins in. And now you get to post up 12 wins to your spiritual scoreboard, right? And you start seeing your spiritual scoreboard is gonna start escalatingly getting higher and higher and higher. And that's where your joy, fulfillment, and excitement for life is going to start building, because you're posting the wins that actually matter. The failures, they're going to go. You're just going to let them flush. Each day, you let them flush. And you go back out of like, okay, I'm going to post up as many wins as I possibly can, right? And I'm going to go through as many fails as I can, right? So you might go through again of like, okay, I'm going to fail 20 times to get out there and, show love. And understand this, like, this isn't like you have to become, like if you're an introvert to be an extrovert, you have to go all and be talking to everybody and doing all. I mean, you could be out and even in your house and like just thinking of someone and sending them blessings, sending them love. It doesn't actually mean you have to go out and engage a whole bunch of people, change your personality or any of that stuff. No, you can be who you are, but focusing on, okay, well, how do I post these wins? How do I post like things of love, joy, gratitude, stuff like that? How do I focus on getting those? And I'm willing to go through mistakes and failures on the way, realizing that those will flush. So I can go through 20 failures, but now I might be posting up 15 wins, which is 15 wins that go to your spiritual scoreboard that count forever. That it counts forever. And you had a day where you posted up 15 wins, versus I played small, I posted up 1 win and maybe 0 losses. Ooh, I got 1 win and 0. And the next day, 1 win, ooh, and 2 fails. 1 win, 1 fail. 1 win, 0, right? Versus you're posting up 15, 10, 20, 30, 18, 16, right? And you might have a whole bunch of failures on the other chart too, but those wash. Those just go away each day. Whoosh, it's like they go away. I kind of always, another like magical metaphor, think of it like a bucket, right? Like your win bucket. So we're posting up to our spiritual board, right? And at the end of the day, you get to carry your buckets, this spiritual board of like how many failures you're going to put on the spiritual board, how many wins, right? But your failure bucket, it's got a hole in the bottom, right? So you can put them up in the day. Like you could put a failure in and another one, and you kind of fill up your bucket with failures. And you're like, oh yeah, fails. And then you're filling up. But in the process, you're also getting some wins. So you're putting some wins in your bucket, right? So at the end of the day, you're like, okay, now I got to take my buckets to the spiritual scoreboard. You pick up your win bucket and you count how many are in there, and they put them on the spiritual scoreboard. But you pick up your failure bucket with the hole in the bottom. You pick up your bucket, all the failures fall through, right? And so you take your empty failure bucket to your spiritual scoreboard and post that up, which is another 0. So that's just an example. So it's a metaphor to keep in your mind, right? And also a way of starting to let it go, of realizing, hey, wait, the failures aren't going to count. The failures are going to wash. Each day I get to wash my failures. I keep them for the day. Keep them for the day or two, right? So you can kind of look at them, make improvements, because you don't want to keep repeating. But when you pick up your bucket, all the failures follow through, and you let that go. You just like, oh, they all fall through. But the wins I was able to collect, those post forever. So I hope that helps the magical metaphor. So until we talk again, have a blessed day or a blessed night. Also, if you liked the video, felt it helped, please try it out. Like it, subscribe it. You can tell other people about it. Also, I'll probably have an offer in there to take things on a very, very deep level and go on a very core stuff that's going to help you post way more wins and get where that failure bucket, or at least even the perceived failure bucket, goes way down. And then also just that pressure, because there is that pressure of like, oh, I don't want to fail. It starts reducing that pressure to where you start more effortlessly posting your wins to your spiritual board. That's a safety course by Vibration Shift. So it's releasing some of these deep, deep energetic chains. It's super simple, very easy to learn, and it's free. So it'll be in the link. So check that out. But also, until we talk again, have a blessed day or a blessed night, and give someone else a blessed day or a blessed night.